Hello, everyone, and welcome. Well, what do you think great grandma's parlor style would look like? What would you choose to do it in to show something that great grandma might have made for her parlor? Um, we want to think back to where we began to remind ourselves of the difference of these styles. The pastel was first, the high contrast was second. And now, great grandma's parlor. In my great grandmother's parlor, I would have expected to see some flour sack fabric. I would expected to see some faded fabrics from old dresses, old curtains, anything like that she might have had. She wouldn't have thrown it away after she'd used it and it faded out in the washing over time. She would have kept it. So she would have had some like very faded or pastel fabrics to go with her newer feed sack fabrics. And every once in a while she would maybe buy a fabric, maybe a bold color. In her day, there were lots of grays and browns and earth tones, and there were some deep blues and greens and reds. And so she would have probably had one or two newer fabrics, and she would have incorporated some of that scraps into her little bit of artwork for her parlor. She would have had some yarns or some something like that she could have used for stemming and things like that. And then no doubt she had some fabric that was more fancier, maybe from the cuff or collar of a dress or something like that, and probably had yellowed over time. And so she might have used that. So this is my working out of the style of grandma's parlor. Now, this is different from just straight vintage in my mind, because I'm thinking about the person themselves. I'm thinking about what they would have specifically been using. I'm not just trying to make something look old. In this style, we want to think about what would really be in our great grandmother's parlor. If we don't know much about our great grandmother, then we can maybe dream it up from the things that we've seen, movies and such and so forth. This differs from vintage in that it's not just looking old. It has personality to it. Later, I'll be doing a great grandma's Victorian parlor, and we'll see how that differs from my, say, great grandmother's parlor. My great grandmother would not have had access to fancy fabrics. As such, she would have not been able to just go buy whatever she wanted. They were farmers, and they were not, destitute or poor, but they definitely didn't have any money to spend on things like that. So think about that when you're making your style of great grandma's parlor. Make it personal, give it personality, make the pieces have a reason. That's what gives it its distinct style. Okay, you're always good with grays. You're always good with some darker green, blue, or red for that era. You're always good with feed sack cloth in that era. She would have had some buttons to play with, and she would have had some colored thread, a few colors of thread. So you can play with those things like that. And I did, it's like a little quilted piece here Maybe she was piecing something and she decided to make a little something for her parlor. So she used a piece of fabric that she'd been quilting and then used a scrap to make the center out of it. So make up a story, give it a style. That is one of the easiest ways to get the style that you're going for. Each of these styles I'm giving you is like a prompt, and it encourages you to create from that style too. You make up a story about it, and when you do, you'll have a personality. You'll know what to do for that. And if you can't do that, well, like I said, just dream it up or ask your friends. Get some advice on how you might effect this design. For the stitching, again, I'm just staying in very simple. This is every bit straight stitching, okay? We have some little longer straight stitches here to hold the center on. Can you see that? Now, on the flower, I did straight stitching, and then what I did was I took the eye end of my needle and I ran it through under the stitching like that with the thread in it, brought it out, bring it over and did it again, brought it out, bring it over and did it again, and that repetitively created a secondary line that went around the flower that serves to outline that flower and bring it forward for me. Since I'm doing a lot of pattern on pattern, which would have been prevalent in my great-grandma's day too with her different feed sacks, pattern on pattern, to bring these little flowers out, I needed something. And I didn't want to just backstitch. This is really easy, and it has just a little bit more texture and a little bit more jaggy look to it, which I like over just plain back stitching to get a heavier look there, okay, or heavier thread. I didn't want to like bulk up my thread either, so that's one way that you could be able to do that. Okay, the others I used a deep burgundy type thread that matched the color of the deep red, and I used a light pink, and I used a dark gray down the stem. Those were the three colors of thread that I used on this. Okay. All right, what do you think? Very distinctly different from our high contrast, isn't it? And very distinctly different from our pastel. Same flower, same pattern, same number of leaves, same number of flowers. Just what we choose to make it out of, that gives us our style. And what we choose to embellish with, what threads we choose to use, how much embellishments we put on, so forth and so on. And so far I've used buttons, beads, eyelash trim, and this one a little bit of lace. That has been basically all that's gone into this. So you can see you can create these with just scraps or fabrics that you have on hand, and you don't have to have a lot of different embellishments or anything like that, or even a lot of different threads. Okay, I have tons of scraps, so I'm making mine with scraps. Okay, all right, now what are we going to do next? Grandma's, great-grandma's parlor is number 3. Number 4 coming up will be coastal, a Cape Cod coastal look. So how are we going to do that one? You're going to have to stay with my series, okay? Please, and if you're enjoying this, share it with your friends. give it a like, and definitely leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you. So until next time, let's all stay very scrap happy. Bye-bye.